Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome, welcome back to the sixth review of my Gamera review series. Yes, indeed, we are officially halfway through the entire Gamera series, and today we will be talking about a movie that I don't hate, but I also don't particularly like either. Today we will be talking about 1970s Gamera versus Jiger. And joining me today is, of course, kaiju YouTuber KPF. Say hello.
Hello.
Nope, ain't got one. Not yet, anyway.
Don't force them.
So, yes, indeed, this is the first Gamera movie of the 1970s. And there's not really much interesting about this movie, if you ask me. I know nothing about it production-wise, except for maybe, I guess, somehow Dai funneled a little bit more money into this movie, but I don't know. Information on this movie is really, really scarce. So Gamera versus Jiger is an interesting installment because in some ways, actually in more ways than you may think, Gamera versus Jiger is actually quite an improvement over the previous two films.
Yep.
The special effects are a lot more well executed. The characters aren't as annoying or as hackneyed as they are in the last couple installments. And the monster isn't as ridiculously over the top or ridiculously stupid as there was in the previous two installments. And overall, this movie's tone isn't as goofy or campy as the previous two installments. It kind of comes off as being a bit of a return to form.
God.
It kind of comes off as being a bit of a return to form from something like Gamera versus Gauss or Gamera versus Barugan. However, it's because of that return to form that I also think this movie is... Okay, I'm just going to come out and say this. I think Gamera versus Jiger is the most forgettable installment of the entire Showa Gamera series. And my fucking phone is ringing. KPF, take over.
Well, I would certainly disagree with that. But yeah, it is true that it is a return to form in the sense that you have similar story to Barugon and Gaio specifically, and it kind of goes away from the idea that Virus and Giron had of these space monsters and whatnot. And was that a turn for the better? Personally, I think so. But, I mean, does it make it forgettable? Not exactly sure. All right, you're back.
The reason I think this movie is the most forgettable Gamera movie of the entire series is because there's a lot of elements in this film that rely on rehashing older ideas. You're going back to a monster that has to do with an ancient civilization that's a rehash of Gamera himself. You're going back to a monster that's a four-legged lizard-type kaiju, which being, of course, Barugan. I'll get to that in just a minute. You're going back to the idea of a monster shooting projectiles at its face. That's taken from Guiron. You're going back to the idea of using creative and inventive ways to try to kill the monster. That's taken from Barugan and Gauss. You're taking the idea of a monster jumping high altitudes to try to attack Gamera. That's also taken from Guiron. You can definitely tell there's a lot of elements in this movie that is just rehashed from previous Gamera movies, and that is why I think this is the most forgettable Gamera movie. And now that I've mentioned Barugan, I have to say, oh my god, Jiger is such a gigantic fucking Barugan ripoff. She, and yes, Jiger is a she. Jiger has the overall four-legged lizard appearance, though granted, Jiger looks a bit more like a salamander-esque type monster. And also, she doesn't walk on her hands and knees when she's walking around. She actually walks on all 4 feet, which I feel bad for the suit actor. It must have been incredibly painful to move around like that. So I will give the suit actor props for that. And also the filmmakers props for making this an actual 4-legged kaiju rather than just a 4-legged kaiju that walks around on his hands and knees. And also Jiger shoots an orange ultraviolet infrared solar beam from her head, which looks a lot like Gamera's rainbow beam. Yeah, Jiger is a pretty big fucking Barragan ripoff. The only aspect that Jiger takes from Guiron is being able to shoot pin needles out of the horns on her face in order to stick into Gamera's arms to keep it from retracting his arms back into his shell. That was done in Gamera versus Guiron as well. So, yeah, I really do think this is the most forgettable Gamera movie. Not to necessarily say that I think it's bad, because in many ways it's not. Like I said, it's a big improvement over the film's predecessor. I'm not the biggest fan of this movie because I feel like everything that's showcased in this movie, I feel like I've seen it before. So, with that being said, oh yeah, one of the first things that pops up when I'm typing in the name is elephant scene. I'll explain that later in context, Jacksonites.
God, that was a fucking elephant scene.
Alrighty, so the plot of Gamera versus Jiger. So right from the very beginning, Gamera has his hands full. Japan is preparing for Expo 1970, which was a real event that happened in Japan. And this movie almost feels like a propaganda piece to showcase Expo 70. I'll get to that later. Which is to be held in Osaka. And construction of the various buildings and pavilions is well underway. And on an island in the Pacific called Wester Island, a large statue of mysterious origin known as the Devil's Whistle is located by geologists and archaeologists. I'm just going to call them that. And workers from the expo are interested in returning the statue for display and try to remove it for transport by ship off Wester Island. And the removal of the statue is hampered by first a tribal member of Wester Island people, then who at that time warns the officials at Expo 70 not to remove the Devil's Whistle, warning of something called Jiger. And of course, the officials say, "Well, what's Jiger? Jiger is something bad. Could you be any less vague?" No, because the script writers won't let me. And then the removal of the Devil's Whistle is hampered by the unexpected arrival of Gamera, who aggressively attempts to prevent the removal of the statue, only to be shot at by the crew instead. So, missiles, tanks, bombs, and electricity can't drive away Gamera, but some shots from a couple rifles can. Real threatening monster you've turned out to be, Gamera. So the statue is removed from the island after a volcano erupts, which attracts the attention of Gamera, of course. And shortly after departing the island, members of the ship's crew began to fall ill. And the statue appears to be the source of the outbreak, as it makes a continuous piercing whistling noise, driving many of the crew members insane. Later analysis reveals the presence of a central shaft that runs nearly the entire length of the statue from top to bottom, and the position of the opening on the statue is creating the high-pitched squeal as air passes through it. Which kind of makes you think, why don't you just plug up the hole or whatever. So after the statue is removed, the giant monster known as Jiger makes her first appearance and gets Gamera's immediate attention. And the first of 3 monster fights goes underway, and Jiger very easily defeats Gamera by shooting projectile pins from her face into Gamera's arms and legs, piercing all the way through, preventing Gamera from withdrawing his limbs into his shell and taking flight. And, of course, Jiger then proceeds to knock Gamera onto his back so he cannot move. And he pulls himself up with his tail using a large rock, removes the quills from his limbs, and is finally able to fly after Jiger, who, after knocking Gamera onto his ass, Jiger then proceeds to shoot jets out of the side of her face and start to ski across the ocean surface, destroying all ships that get in her way. What? And meanwhile, Jiger is actively this really does not make sense plot-wise. But I'll get to that in just a minute. But Jiger is actively seeking the statue because of it making the horrible sound. It's causing her tremendous pain. And Jiger lets nothing get in her way as she hunts for the statue and starts going on a rampage, terrassing through Osaka. And scientists are beside themselves as Jiger displays another weapon, being the ultraviolet ultrasonic heat ray that vaporizes flesh and city blocks all the same. And the JSDF makes an effort to kill the monster. However, her quills knock down the jets, and she wipes out the tank regime, ending that involvement. So Gamera returns for round 2 as the fight is witnessed by several Kennys. Actually, the kids aren't so bad in this movie.
I have a different opinion.
Gamera knocks Jiger around and has the upper hand until Jiger pulls Gamera to her and extends a stinger from her tail and stabs the barb into Gamera's shoulder, impregnating Gamera with an egg inside his lung. Gamera staggers away, roaring in agony, and he barely makes it to the bay, and his body turns a chalky white color, almost like ice, and enters one of his mid-movie comas. This is getting really, really old with Gamera.
Oh my god. This movie and Barugan, like, shot for fucking shot.
Gamera is presumed to have been killed at this point as Jiger heads straight to Expo 70. Jiger finally obtains the statue, throws it into the ocean, which ends the painful noise finally. And the scientists are checking out possible causes of the noise as it has affected humans, causing temporary insanity. And the kids convince them to do a medical exam on the comatose Gamera, where it is discovered that there is a dark spot on one of Gamera's lungs, which at first they think maybe it's cancer cells, but that's complete horseshit because he survived a nuclear explosion, so how the hell would he have cancer? One of the scientists at the Expo 70 served as a zoo director and realizes that the spot might not be a fast-spreading cancer, but is actually a parasite that Jiger inserted inside of Gamera that is growing quickly. And it is this pretty infamous scene that this movie is almost solely known for, when the scientist shows a piece of footage when he was at a zoo and one of his elephants got a giant growth in its trunk. So they decided to do some surgery, and they slit open this growth, causing a whole bunch of what looks like spaghetti to start spilling out of this growth, which turned out to be parasitic worms.
Oh, Nick, not to interrupt you, but the title of this video says Giron, not Jiger.
Did I write that?
Yeah. I just saw it because Sean said it in the chat. I didn't notice it, but...
Sue me, Jackson. I just got up an hour ago. God damn it, where the hell is it? You want to take over for a little bit?
Yeah. Alright, let's see. Jiger, director, shows fighting cancer. Does it even say anything about the elephant scene? Anyway.
No, it doesn't. I was talking about that out of the.
Okay. So all right. So yeah, they think Gamera's got cancer, and then from that dark spot, and then yeah, but it's actually a Jiger growing inside of Gamera.
Baby Jiger.
So they're like, okay, what are we gonna do? And then the kids just basically steal one of the I try to call it a phone because it looks like a phone. The little walkie-talkie. They get into the mini sub and they just go inside Gamera in probably the worst part of the entire movie. I hate this. Anyway, they go inside of him and his head's like white, and they're about to go into the stomach, and they arrive at the lung, and they're able to exit the sub because the water is shallow, and they see the baby Jiger, which I mean basically is like the same suit. Instead of shooting quills, it shoots a weird sticky goo that maybe attacks them, but it is weakened just like its mother by somehow the freaking walkie-talkie's white noise. The kids discover this is a fatal weakness and manage to kill the baby using the static. They leave Gamera's body and report their findings to the scientists. They rig up large speakers to keep...
Which that is a plot hole. They leave a monster carcass to rot inside Gamera's body. What? Kids.
There are speakers to keep Jiger at bay, as well as figure out that power. Figure out that power would have to be also run into Gamera, who seemingly cannot recover his own. The children make a final trip inside Gamera to hook up the set of power lines directly to his heart. I don't even remember that part. I got so bored at that whole thing. Anyway, Jiger is kept immobile by the speakers playing the white noise. It's not enough to kill her, but it buys them enough time to get the other plane started. Gamera is subjected to high voltage. That's a good song. Before the electrical grid overloads. It is enough that Gamera does survive on his own. Want me to continue on?
Yeah.
Alright. Last paragraph. Gamera flies over to the World's Fair for the final battle. Jiger tries every weapon she has, but Gamera has learned from previous battles. After her spears fail to affect him from... Oh my god, that was such a weird scene. Jiger then uses her heat ray, the one weapon she has yet to use on him. It does not affect Gamera's shell or even skin, likely due to his heat resistance, but the sound it generates threads Roger's eardrums. Luckily, Gamera is able to put telephone poles.
Oh god, this scene.
Protecting him from the sound. He looks like a moron after he does that. Looks like Frankenstein. After trying all her other attacks, Jiger resorts to a tail stinger again, but Gamera is prepared this time and uses a building to smash her tail and destroy the stinger, which just shoots out of her tail, I guess, and keeps moving. Gamera body slams Jiger several times from great heights, but Jiger is not affected. However, buys Gamera the time to go to the ocean, retrieve the statue from the ocean floor. Jiger, enraged by the statue's return, attempts to jump in the air and try to catch it from the flying Gamera. Gamera taunts Jiger with the statue, who tries to retrieve it. Gamera finally ends the fight by throwing the statue at Jiger, basically going right through her skull and her brain. And Gamera returns the devil beast's carcass to the Wester Island. The end.
So how about this plot, KPF?
back and forth. I do like it. Because it's kind of, and we'll talk about this in a little bit when I get to my cons too. It is a very much a rehash of the Barugon story, but I really liked that story and how it kind of was all about like ancient, mysterious forces and weird island shit. You know what I mean? It's like, I know, I kind of liked that whole aspect. But overall, it was entertaining, I think, except for one scene that I'll get to.
Well, like I said, for me, this plot isn't bad, but like KPF said, this movie relies way too much on rehashing older ideas. And to me, I just feel like I'm just retreading the same ground watching this movie. It doesn't really make it nearly as fun as watching something like Gamma versus Berrigan or Gamma versus Gauss. So with that being said, let's get into the pros of Gamma versus Jiger. You can go first, KPF.
All right, let's see. 1, 2. I have 7 pros.
Oh my!
7 pros. I think the movie had a good opening. I think it didn't like screw around. Like it kind of got to the point, and I'll get to this in my cons later too. But in general, the movie had good pacing in the beginning. It was quite quick. Gamera was there, I'm pretty sure, like right away. Jiger didn't take too long. I did really like the story. This is my second one now. I did really like the story, though it was similar to Barugon. I still loved it. Still had a lot of fun with it. One thing, more of a smaller thing for my third pro, is that the I guess it's technically green screen. I'm pretty sure it might not be, but when they have when they were on the island and Gamera and Jiger, or I think it might have just been Jiger, was like just appeared. They had a bunch of the humans like walk over to a mountain and look at them, and the effects looked really good. Like especially compared to freaking Gamera versus Virus. That, oh my god. But the effects look really good in that scene where there were human monster stuff. My fourth one, I do like Jiger. I think, as you mentioned earlier, the whole finally getting a 4-legged monster that's an actual 4-legged monster was really cool to see. Because to me, it was cool to see that they cared enough to try to make that look right. The abilities are pretty cool, a little wacky. That weird ray thing that's too much like Barugon. The little spike things are kind of weird, but they're kind of funny. And her flying ability is just ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. And I do kind of like the whole backstory of the volcano and the island or whatnot. I think this movie had really good monster fights.
Yeah.
Oh, they weren't amazing. That's one thing that I think that the Godzilla series does way better than this series, especially the Showa series, is monster fights. But however, comparing this to the last 2 movies, I think this fight was better. And
yes.
Basically, the only gripe I had with the fights was that it was the same. Gamera fucking flies a monster and just drops him on the ground every once in a while. It gets kind of old.
Yes,
very.
very.
And I did like Gamera's suit in this movie. I'm pretty sure it was different from the last one.
It is.
And I think there might have been a difference in. I think that like the neck looks longer or something, but I knew there was a difference. And I think Gamera had good screen time in this movie. Though he was asleep for probably 10 minutes of his screen time in the movie, he was there. He was still a good part of the story. That's something it had over Barugon, is that, when he was out asleep or whatever, he was still involved. When he was out in Barugon, they just ignored him. So I like that. So I actually ended up combining 2 of my pros into one. So I ended up with, I think, 6 here.
All right.
That's it.
So here's my pros for Gamera versus Jiger. Pro number 1 is I do think that the special effects in this film are overall fairly good. They're not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, don't get me wrong. However, in comparison to the last 2 movies, they are a big improvement. The miniatures are a lot more well-made. The monster suits are a lot more well made. The explosions look decent. The blue screen effects, they're a little better than they are in the previous two movies, especially Gamera versus Guiron. Oh my god, they look terrible in Guiron. Here, I mean, you can clearly tell that they're still blue screen effects, but they don't look nearly as grainy as they did in the last two movies. But overall, I do think the special effects are fairly good. There is one aspect of the effects I think is legitimately bad, but I'll get to that when I get to my cons. So overall, the special effects are fairly good. As much as you don't like the scene where they go inside Gamera, I do think that his insides do look kind of cool.
Yes.
Pro number 2 is that the monster fights in this movie are decent. They are better than the last two movies. Actually, I'd probably say they're better than... Oh, no, they're probably the best monster fights since Gamera versus Gauss. Because the one at the end of Virus was piss poor. The 2 and kind of 3 in Guiron, they were kind of okay, but they were really slow. Here, they feel more like actual monster fights. They don't just feel like just really campy play matches between two monsters. They actually feel like fights, and they're fairly exciting for that. And there's 3 of them, so at least there's a decent amount of action. So yeah, and they're also fairly long too. None of them are overly long, but none of them are overly short, except maybe the first one. But I guess you could say, well, it's short to showcase Jiger's abilities and how good she is at defeating Gamera. So I guess you could say that. But anyway, I do think the monster fights in this movie are overall pretty decent. Pro number 3, I actually really like Gamera's design in this movie. He does get a redesign in this movie, and this is the design he'll have for this movie in Zigra, and technically Super Monster as well, because that movie uses stock footage. But let's not talk about Super Monster yet. So this is Gamera's design for this movie and the next. I actually do have to politely disagree with Zazabar when he says he doesn't really care for Gamera's design, stating that Gamera looks a bit like a snake. Just a snake with bottom jaw fangs. And I can see that he looks a bit like a snake, but I don't mind it. I think Gamera still does look fine. It actually makes him look a bit more personable, if you ask me. So I do.
Shut up, Sean.
And also, and it's not like it's a drastic redesign like what Gamera will go through in the Heisei trilogy. So I don't mind Gamera's redesign. I think it looks fine. Not much to complain about. I like Gamera's design. Pro number 4 is Jiger's death. I really do like Jiger's death. I did not see that one coming. The way that Gamera kills Jiger, he takes the devil's whistle and he javelin tosses it at Jiger, and it stabs into Jiger's head, obviously killing her. I like that death. I did not see that one coming, and it actually made me go, "Oh my god!" when I first saw that. So I did not expect that. I'll give a movie props. I like Jiger's death. And pro number 5 is I actually thought the human cast in this movie was kind of decent. Keyword I say is kind of, because, it's still a show a Gamera human cast. It's not amazing. However, in comparison to Gamera versus Virus and Toshio from the first Gamera movie, I actually didn't really mind the human cast. Though Hiroshi, Hiroshi was okay, because he wasn't really all that annoying, and he was kind of proactive in combating the monsters. I think he's the one who comes up with the idea to go inside Gamera and see what's wrong with them. So I at least like that he is proactive in the situation against the monsters. Though I actually do like Zazubar's nickname for him being Hiroshi Eyebrows McGee, because damn, this kid's got some big fucking eyebrows. Oh my god, he's like one one eyelash away from having a full-on fucking unibrow. Oh my god. And his American friend, because this is a trend that the Gamera movies have been doing since Gamma versus Virus. The two kids have to have an American kid and a Japanese kid. The American kid's parents, I really don't like.
In any of the movies, I fucking hate them.
Because they just kind of seem like they're the ignorant General Hicks type characters. You all know how much I like Major Hicks from Godzilla 98.
Shoot again.
Shoot again. Shoot, ask questions, or shoot, ask questions never. I really don't like I can't remember the American kid's name. Kids are so forgettable.
Jim or something.
It may have been Jim. So Jim's parents, I'll just say.
I think that was Garon.
No, that was Tom.
Oh, fuck.
Whatever, who cares? So I'll just say Jim's parents. I don't like Jim's parents. They're the arrogant, shoot first, ask questions never type assholes. But overall, and also Hiroshi's dad, I also kind of liked. He was funny. He was one of those really cool dads who just he loves his son, obviously, and he's essentially this really big kid. And he just wants his kids that just have fun in life. So I did like, oh, you're going to try to compete with me in the burp department, boy?
Gonna need a beer for this.
Why do I do this to myself? Anyway, so yeah, I didn't mind Hiroshi's dad, and overall, I didn't really mind the human cast in this movie all that much. They're not amazing by any means, and the scientists and military dudes, they're about as bland and generic as you can get. But overall, I've seen worse human casts in a monster movie. So that'll do it for my pros for Gamera versus Jiger. What are your cons, KPF?
3 cons.
Oh boy. I have...
The first of which...
I have 6.
Actually, all of these are quite major. The biggest con of all. Fuck these children. Fuck Hiroshi. Fuck his stupid American friend. And fuck his little sister.
Oh, yes. Oh my god, I forgot to mention that one.
Gamera, shut the fuck up.
Yes, Jim's little sister is easily the most annoying character in this movie. She looks and sounds like a fucking monkey. I hate monkeys. That's straight up what she looks like. She looks like a monkey. She talks like a monkey. She sounds like a monkey. Oh my god. I'm just going to call her Kendra just for the hell of it. Kendra is easily the most annoying character in this movie. Oh my god.
And I'm going to tell you how bad I think the children were. They were so bad in the final fight. I muted my TV. And that's not even a joke. I had to mute the TV. It's ridiculous. It's like, get up, Gamera. Don't give up, Gamera. We love you, Gamera. Try blocking your ears, Gamera. Just let him fight. I actually muted my TV. Then I probably missed maybe some other actual conversation going on, but I guarantee I didn't.
You didn't.
Fuck. They're easily my least favorite only because of how bad they were in the final fight. And it might have to do with the fact that this movie's end fight might have been longer than other ones, but I still didn't really like any of them. God. Yeah, I don't
that was
like
a hungry bird.
in this movie. They quite literally killed me, and they almost killed the movie for me. Next up, the whole fucking submarine inside Gamera plotline was so boring. And and I watched it last night. It might have been because I was tired, but I had to watch the movie in like 3 parts because I had too much stuff going on. But that was so boring. I turned it on about 10 minutes before that scene, basically like right before the boys basically took off with the walkie-talkie. That was so freaking boring. I couldn't believe it. And there's only one point where I laughed in that scene or had any emotion. because when Hiroshi just threw the fucking phone at the Jiger baby and it stuck to his head, he was like, I was like, what? No, I hated that whole scene. It felt really slow. But again, it could have been because I didn't watch the movie without any breaks. Maybe it would have changed how I thought, but I really didn't like any of that. It took too long. And this is a weird one because I sort of also put it as a pro. However, the repetitiveness of this plot line, and I'm going to try to. This movie and Gaius have similarities, but really it and Baragon has similarities between the monsters, between the fact that there's an island with some sort of like mystical thing. In this movie, it's a statue. It was the Opal in Baragon. Both of those have to do with the monsters coming to wherever the hell they go. But they're on an island, and then they come, they have a rampage, and then Gamera shows up, and then Gamera's like frozen for part of the movie, and then they have a bunch of plans to defeat this monster, and then Gamera comes in the end of the day and saves the day. The only difference, Barugon didn't have children. And honestly, I still think Barugon, even though I really love this movie, I still think Barugon's better because I'd rather have less Gamera than less children. Or I think I said it the other way around. I'd rather have less children in the film than less Gamera. So I really, oh God damn it, this story would have been so much better without the children. But I guess that does technically make it different than Barugon. But yeah, those are my cons.
Well, I have 6 cons for Gamera versus Jiger.
Oh, shit.
Con number 1 is, oh my God, is this movie such an infomercial for Expo 70? There is entire scenes dedicated to exposition for Expo 70, and it gets really old, really annoying. Your burp was really weak, and it gets really, really, really tedious to sit through. Oh my God, was all the exposition for Expo 70 really, really, really forced and pointless. Con number 2, this may seem like a minor complaint, but it is a massive, massive pet peeve that I have with monster movies. The monsters' mouths hang open like crazy in this movie.
Jiger's mouth looks so fucking weird when he roars. It's like,
Gamera does this too, and it's even worse in the next movie. When the monsters are walking around and fighting, their mouths just hang open like fucking puppets, which wouldn't happen because their mouths would close if they were real monsters. Even like 5 minutes after they roar, their mouth is still hanging open. Again, it may seem really nitpicky, but it's really distracting, and it really sticks out like a sore thumb. And it drives me absolutely insane how much their mouths hang open. I actually think Gamera does it more than Jiger does. And Gamera does it almost all the time in the next movie. But yeah, the monster's mouths just hang open like crazy, and it drives me absolutely insane. Con number 3 is that the prop effects are terrible. When Gamera is flying around like Superman, it's clearly a model, and when Jiger is using her face rockets to jump around, it's clearly a prop that they're using, like it's on either a string or like a stick, and it just looks like a toy that somebody is digitally removing the hand from, and it's just moving around. Oh my God, it looks really awkward, and it looks really terrible. Painfully up. Actually, this franchise has had a really bad shit stain record of using monster props to showcase monsters when they're not the suits, and they always look terrible. Gauss did it when Gamera and Gauss were flying, and they're just props. They look terrible. When Gamera's flying around in Virus, it looks terrible. In Guiron, I actually think it may be even a little worse because they use a lot more props in that film. When Gamera's flying around and Guiron's jumping around with their props, and they look terrible. And here the props look terrible. Oh my God. And they use them quite a bit in this movie, so it makes it a little worse. The props look horrible. Con number, let's see, 1, 2, 4 is that I think this movie is not paced very well. Again,
Oh fuck no.
another thing that this series has had a track record for is the films being imbalancedly paced. Now, this movie isn't as horrendously paced as something like Gamera versus Virus, or even slightly. You will not catch up to me in the burp department, boy. This movie isn't as badly paced as something like Gamera, the first Gamera movie, or Gamera versus Virus, especially. But I do think this movie is imbalancedly paced. The stuff with the humans is moving kind of slow, but the stuff with the monsters is moving pretty quick. It's kind of like a King Kong versus Godzilla type thing. But still, I mean, this movie it's not the worst paced movie I've ever seen in my life, but still, it could have been a lot better.
Inconsistent.
Yes, that's the best way you can describe it. It's very inconsistent. So let's see. 1, 2. Con number 5 is, oh my god, Jiger is such a huge Berrigan ripoff. Jiger, she looks like Berrigan, a 4-legged lizard, long tail type kaiju with a large head. That one wasn't bad.
All right, go ahead.
The 4-legged lizard type kaiju with a long tail, a large head, and dorsal spines. Jiger is such.
Head is giant though.
And a giant heat ray that Jiger shoots out the top of her body, even though specifically she shoots it from her head. Gamera shoots, or not Gamera, Berrigan shoots it from his back. Still, they do look kind of similar, and it's really distracting, and it just makes me feel like, okay, Jiger is nothing new. The only thing that she has going for her is her face rockets and the fact that she can impregnate things with her tail.
That's true.
And her face needles is taken straight out of Guiron. And I also kind of think her jumping abilities is somewhat taken from Guiron. Though at least here it's because she has face rockets. And also... Oh, another thing that she has that's original is that she has like these suction abilities on the bottom of her feet.
Oh, yeah.
Which I actually do think that's kind of cool, but it's not really used that much. But still, Jiger is a massive, massive rehash of previous monsters.
Oh, and one thing, Jiger does this weird thing where, like, she'll just, like, put her hand out and, like, a fucking rock will just, like, fucking, like, magnet to her hand and she'll just, like, throw it.
That's the suction ability.
Yeah, that was, like, okay. It looks so fucking weird. Because it didn't go on her fingers, like, it went on her palm and it was like, what the, what?
And I think this movie's biggest problem, con number 6, is that this movie does rely a lot on rehashing old ideas. Which kind of makes me think that the studio was really desperate to get a movie out, but they didn't have enough time or money to invest in coming up with some new ideas. So they just said, okay, let's just rehash some older ideas and then put a Gamera movie out. I've already kind of gone into a lot of detail with how much this movie rehashes, but it's kind of the tone of Gauss with elements of Guiron and Berrigan, a lot of Berrigan.
I was happy they got away from the whole space thing.
Yeah, I do like that they kind of brought it a little bit more down to earth, literally and figuratively. And they don't try to attempt their hackneyed alien invasion plot, though sadly the next 2 movies will do that. So overall, I don't like all the rehashing that they do in this movie. It just kind of makes me think they were either just lazy or they were really rushed or both. So with all that said, what's your final thoughts on Gamera versus Jiger?
Very mixed, because I hate a lot about it, but I also love a lot about it. So, in the end of the day, I would see. It's hard when I want to rank this movie. I'd probably rank it better than both Virus and Euron. But
Agree.
even though Gaios is a batshit crazy movie, at least it copies Barugon's formula, but not to the extent that this movie did. You know what I mean? So I did like it. What does this turn into? Okay. Yeah, so ultimately, I think it kind of, though, yes, it was kind of a ripoff. It was kind of like a breath of fresh air, I guess would be a good way to say.
A little bit.
For the series. Go ahead.
What's your rating?
So for Barugon, I did a 7 out of 10. Giles, I did a 6 out of 10, I think. This one, I'll give it a 5.8.
Less than I give it. So my overall thoughts, in many ways, this movie is an improvement over the two previous movies. And I'd also say in a couple ways, I enjoyed this movie more than the last three movies. Because whereas with Gauss is such a big letdown from Gamera versus Barrigan, so that maybe that's why I don't like Gauss so much. But compared to the previous two movies, this movie is such a drastic improvement that I found myself enjoying this movie a lot more than I thought I would, even though I still do think that this is the most forgettable Gamera movie of the entire Showa series, potentially of the entire franchise. So, and like KPF said, this movie is kind of a mixed bag. There's elements of it that I like, but there's also elements of this that I don't like. But despite that, I am going to give this, stop sucking off your can. I am going to give this movie a 7 out of 10.
My rating system is a lot harsher inherently. That's why it was lower.
So yeah, 7 out of 10. It's not the worst Gamera movie by any means, but like I said, it's probably the most forgettable one. And I actually now have nicknames for all 8 of the Showa Gamera series. The Good Start, the Best, the Letdown, the Bad One, the So Bad It's Good, the Forgettable One, the Boring One, and the Insulting One. So that'll do it for this review of Gamera versus Jiger. I'll be sure to fix the title once I get to Creator Studio.
So do you still plan on having Parakoke come on for Ziggler? Have you guys worked that out? No,
we have not. I haven't really talked to him because I've just been so busy with work for the last few days.
And then I'm back for Super Monster. Yay!
Oh boy, you're gonna appreciate Gamera versus Guiron a lot more.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I asked to do that. I had never seen any of them except for the original when I asked you that. Or no, I saw Barugon, but still.
And then I showed him like the first 10 minutes of Zazubar's review for Gamera Palooza, and he and I could see on KPF's face that he was thinking, "Oh God, what have I got myself into?"
I fucked up. Well, you know what? I mean, honestly, I've fucking watched all of them so far, so might as well.
Alrighty, so post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this review. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends. Check out KPF's channel, even though he hasn't done any videos for the last few days.
Whatever. There's been no news.
Why don't you get to work on re-editing some more of my videos?
I might. Actually, there was news about the Godzilla 2 comic. That's fun.
Anyway, so yeah, post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Look forward to tomorrow's review as I get to one of the most boring monster movies I have ever seen in my life. When I talk about 1971's Put the Finger Down, Gamera versus not Jiger, goddammit. Gamera versus Zigra. Oh God, I am not looking forward to that one. And look forward to that. And I will see you guys in the next one. So go out and try to stop your parents from fucking up a mythology on an island that's somehow connected to a bullshit lost civilization. And I will see you guys in the next review. Say bye, KPF.
Bye.